This is a presentation from the 2013 Cannabis World Summit. Please visit www.cannabisworldsummit.com for more great cannabis information, which is available to you completely for free. This information is being made available to you in part thanks to our sponsors. Please visit their websites to learn more about their excellent products and services. The following presentation is for informational purposes only. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Leaves of Hope Productions, Inc. Please note that regardless of any statements expressed or implied in the following presentation, that we do not condone you breaking any laws. We are not providing any legal, medical, or financial advice of any kind. No comments about cannabis being a cure for any medical use, expressed or implied, is to be taken as a claim or guarantee. None of the statements have been verified by the FDA of the United States, Health Canada, or the governing organizations of your particular country. And again, this information is being provided for informational purposes only, and the participants exercise their freedom of speech discussing what they believe to be true. We do not guarantee the accuracy of any information provided. It is your responsibility to evaluate the information before you choose to make any use of it. Please consult with a doctor knowledgeable about cannabis prior to using cannabis, and or prior to discontinuing any medications you may be currently using. Please check with the laws of your country and region to determine whether you are legally permitted to use and or grow cannabis prior to any involvement with cannabis yourself. Even though we believe that cannabis ought to be legalized, we do not condone you violating any laws. Please review the legal disclaimers on the Cannabis World Summit website and only proceed to enjoy this presentation if you agree with all legal disclaimers, agree to hold the company, Leaves of Hope Productions, Inc., and the presenters harmless and are of legal age in your region. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod and Incompetech.com for the music used in this introduction.
So we have Wayward Bill Chengelis on the call today, talking about cannabis and, of course, what's been going on in Colorado, lots of exciting things. But we're also going to be talking about cannabis, the plant, farmers, and a few other important topics politically as well. So, Wayward Bill, thank you so very much for agreeing to do this call with us today and sharing some of your wisdom.
And thank you for calling me, Bobby. What's it like up there in the Northwoods today?
It's the snow is melting. However, it's still pretty wet outside. So, how's it up there in Colorado?
It's supposed to jump up into the 70s today, and we had snow yesterday.
Well, at least it's relatively warm in the 70s there compared to what we have. But anyhow, it's of course there's a lot of warmth and heat out there as well, not just from the temperature of the weather, but from all the political and all the passion of the people out there. But Bill, I'd like to get started by asking you, how did you get started with cannabis long ago? I'm sure there must be an interesting story about how you've come to discover the virtues of this plant. And so, what was your start with cannabis?
My start with cannabis was basically the day after John F. Kennedy got killed. I had a friend that had a paper route. I was only 12 3/4 years old, and I used to help him every day. And we delivered to Youngstown University around the campus. And there were these beatnik girls, and being like 12 3/4 years old and feeling pubescent, they always piqued my interest, and I always stopped and talked with them. And that day I just happened to be crying because Kennedy had been killed the day before. And I used to bump cigarettes off them. They're going, well, come on upstairs, Billy. We'll make you a cup of tea and let's talk. And we all sat down, and, you know, they made some tea, and they started rolling cigarettes, and they passed me one, and it tasted funny. And they said, yeah, hold it in there. And I did that, and next thing we were all laughing and joking and having a good time, and I forgot about the president being killed. And that will come to fruition the 23rd of November this year, 50 years ago.
Well, that's quite some time actually, but also tied in with quite a historical moment as well. Your beginnings with cannabis, but of course. You've discovered cannabis at that time, good for a few laughs and forgetting about problems, but I also understand that you've also discovered that it can help you in many ways years later. Can you share how?
That is correct. And the political aspect I got into is in 1968 in Chicago during the Democratic National Convention. I was a page for the party. I got sent by the state of Ohio because I had gotten more signatures than anybody else in the state for the 18-year-old vote. So they treated me royally and sent me to the convention. But I got to see firsthand, the Chicago riots of '68. But in the daytime, we didn't have anything to do in the hotels. We were 17-year-old kids, so naturally we went to the park. And I got to hear John Sinclair of the White Panther Party speak. Mm-hmm. And basically I've been a marijuana socialist ever since.
Okay. Well, you've also been doing a lot out in Colorado, helping with, of course, the legalization efforts out there. I've seen a few videos of you over the years. Actually, you've been quite active in rallying up people and informing people that this is just a plant, and of course, that it's a safer alternative to alcohol. And of course, I've even seen you on a YouTube video back in 2011 where you were saying that you're going to be having this legalized by 2012. And while you know what, those prophetic words definitely came true. Can you share with us some of your involvement with what's been going on in Colorado, with everything that's happened? I'm sure you've played a humongous role in that victory.
Well, I prefer to think that I'm a bit player in a horror movie called Marijuana Prohibition, and I know that the movie will end when the script reads that I get the girl, I ride off into the sunset in a cloud of reefer smoke, and her name is Mary Jane. But basically in Colorado, I've been involved basically with an actual organization here in this state since 2005. That organization was SAFER, which is a safer alternative for enjoyable recreation. It was founded by Mason Trevert, a libertarian, who basically used the three words: marijuana is safer than alcohol. And I like that philosophy. It was clear, concise, three words. And got involved with them, and we basically pushed for we wrote the law that way, that basically marijuana was safer than alcohol, and we put it on as a ballot initiative in the city and county of Denver only, and not the rest of the state in 2005, and we won. We won by 53% of the vote. And from that, we were on a green cloud, so we thought, okay, let's do the state next year, and we lost miserably at 43%. But we didn't quit. We didn't quit educating the people. Is the whole thing, that all along we kept pushing. Marijuana is safer than alcohol. That you eat the icebox, lose the remote, and go to sleep. You don't beat up your girlfriend. You don't do all those stupid things that you possibly do on alcohol. And so we educated the public in Colorado and kept after it. In 2009, our health department lifted the cap on caregivers. We had medical marijuana since 2000, and with that, it allowed for the beginning of the dispensary system here. Mm-hmm. And with that, right away, there was almost one on every corner. And that panicked people, that you can't basically throw the unknown at them and suddenly it's on every corner like Starbucks, and that's a reality here in Denver right now. There's more dispensaries than there are Starbucks.
Is that true? Really? That's amazing.
That is very, very true. It's the honest to God truth.
Well, just interject for just a moment on a tangent. Of course, we spoke last week before doing this interview, and you told me a little bit about what's going on in Colorado with of course these laws being as they are. And ladies and gentlemen, listening to this call, I have to say I felt like I was listening to some alternate universe being described, some Shangri-La for cannabis, that where people are actually open and receptive to this. As you just heard yourself, there's more dispensaries than there are Starbucks. It just boggles the mind, and hopefully this will spread throughout the U.S., throughout the world as well, in other countries, that it'll become so free that even the mentality of the people, I've heard that from other people that I spoke to in Colorado, that the negative people who are opposed to this, they're the minority. And in fact, would you say, Wayward, Bill, that right now the atmosphere is very positive, supportive? There's no stigma in Denver around cannabis now.
There's still stigma. You know that you always have the naysayers that are always saying, "Well, what about the kids?" You know, I attended right now. The city and county of Denver is thinking about banning the recreational pot shops. And I got to attend the first of two meetings 2 days ago, and you know, and they had their trump cards there. They had the Dr. Chris Thurstone, I believe it. Dr. Thurstone. Let's not screw up his first name, but he is Harry Anslinger, John D. Rockefeller, and William Hearst all rolled into one with a doctorate. And he feels that, you know, that cannabis is the root of all evil, that it's a gateway drug that is still destroying the youth of the country. You know, his rhetoric is straight from 1937, and he was one of the star witnesses. Well, they asked the task force to come in, and the task force sent him and basically 4 other people that basically are kind of there, but they're not there. You know, in other words, that their presentation, they don't want pot shops on every corner. You know, and so that's the testimony they got. And they only allowed 5 citizens to testify, you know, in signing up, because they matched a speaker for a speaker, you know, their speakers, and then, you know, the public speakers. And that turned out to be 3 people for the pot shops and 2 against. And it's going to be interesting, the second meeting here. Hopefully I'll get to testify at the second meeting. Mm-hmm. If not, I already have. In fact, I came up with a BBC video today that was put out yesterday about Breckenridge, Colorado, possibly beating all the cities, and even Netherlands, like I told you the other day, of being the first open city where they encourage, you know, cannabis tourism, and that's up in our mountains. And I'm going to use that because they're basically embracing it. I'm going to send that video and my select words, and hopefully be able to sway some of our city council people, you know, from not, you know, in the city and county of Denver, the vote for A64 was 67% for, as opposed to the state's 53%.
Wow, that's actually a significant number.
It is a significant number, and you know, and that tells you exactly, you know, what, you know. You're right. I live in Shangri-La. I live in Eden. It's not the garden yet, but we're getting pretty close to that. You know, it basically, you know, when the governor signed the executive order making A64 regulate marijuana like alcohol into law, every 21-year-old adult in the state could start growing 6 plants.
And for a lot of people, medicinally as well, that's sufficient for a lot.
Yes, it is, and basically that's what it's written into our Amendment 20, which is our medical marijuana law, and that patients get 6 plants unless their doctor determines that they need more for medibles, or their consumption requires more. I mean, we had one landmark case here, Jason Love in Boulder, where they came, took his medicine, and he went in and instead of saying, okay, well, I'm a patient and you took it, and it could have left it at that, he fought it and he got his medicine back. It was the first case in Colorado where somebody got their medicine back, and the lawyers here, the good lawyers, just keep rolling case after case where they try to hurt the patient by taking their medicine, destroying their plants, and then they have to pay them back. And it's now written into law that each plant is worth $5,000 when they do that. So if they kill the plant, so these cities are now thinking, okay, maybe we ought to back off, because it's becoming cost effective for them. When they go into somebody's grow and they have 300 plants and they're authorized 300 plants, then and they destroy them, and that's times, that's $150,000 right there.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's a costly mistake to go tear up that garden. That's for sure. And that's the whole thing about our laws, is that basically they are written so that each city can deal with it how they want to, depending on whether the people are going to let them get away with it or not. And they've already, they banned the pot shops up in Fort Collins 2 years ago and got them back this year. Mm-hmm. So it's a push me, pull you, situation. But it's all going to gel eventually. It has to. I mean, the new law says that they have to have, something set into place by January 2014. And so we will see what that becomes. Starting Friday, yesterday they announced that a legislative task force. We have so many task forces that basically made up with 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, and they will sit down and they will hammer out the first actual regulations for Amendment 64. Okay. Well, let's hope that everything goes smoothly and everything progresses well in that respect.
Yes, so do I, and I intend to be at that meeting. I don't think they're taking public testimony, but we have in the States, and you probably have up in Canada too, a thing called the Sunshine Law, and that meaning that they can have private closed meetings. That they have to be accessible by public, or streamed by public, or you can listen to it publicly. And our government's really good here in Colorado for that. I mean, if I'm sick and I don't want to give somebody my cold or the flu or whatever, and I can't make a hearing, I can sit at home and listen to that hearing or the proceedings of whatever is going on.
Oh, that's good. So it's accessible for everybody who cares to participate in it. That's definitely really good. So, it's nice that the governments are becoming more transparent and, of course, allowing using technology to allow people to listen remotely to what's actually going on and participate in that way as well. But I got a question for you, because, of course, all the legalization that's happened out in Colorado, of course, I'm quite impressed. I didn't know before, but, of course, you mentioned in 2005 Denver was legalized on a city municipal level, and then, of course, recently last year you have it on the state level. Now, the question I have is this. It's a two-part question, because I've been talking about this with people, and, of course, there's been a lot of speculation over the years of from simple laws of economics, supply and demand, and all that sort of stuff like that, and, of course, the reason for the price of marijuana being so high is because of the prohibition, and a lot of people speculate that if it becomes legalized, the price would drop because, of course, there would be a lot more growers. I'm just curious, two parts to this question. I'll just ask both of them, and you can answer whichever one you see best first. Regarding the price of cannabis, I'm just wondering, have you noticed a decrease in the price, increase of the quality? Is that a trend that you're seeing, just conforming with the standard laws of economics? And the second question is this, of course, a lot of arguments are that the crime aspect of, like all the organized crime and all that goes along with it, of course, is a result of not anything to do with marijuana or cannabis itself. It's actually directly correlated to prohibition. So the laws create the crime, and that a lot of people speculate that once you end the prohibition, that a lot of the crime will disappear along with it. And so the question is this: are you seeing that trend that the crime's going down in regards to cannabis itself because there's less incentive there for criminal activity?
Okay. First part of the question. The standard, I'm going to the price part first. Okay. In Colorado and basically in the western United States, probably from the early 90s up until we had dispensaries in 2009, the street price was $400 an ounce, and that's still cheaper than the East Coast, which it runs $625, $525, and once the dispensaries got into place, they held that standard basically for a year because one thing, they put out a lot of money, for all the scales and the security and and all the things that you do to attract customers. But as they matured and the ones that were true to heart and had good business sense managed to stay afloat, and the others went down. But the thing is, as that matured, so did the price. It steadily came down. The standard price right now in Denver is $150 an ounce. Wow. Which is $250 less than it was, in 2009. Mm-hmm. And then they, because of competition, you get with texts these days. I get texts all day long from different dispensaries, and they drop it down to 125, 115. Concentrates are a really big thing now, because they've discovered that basically you don't have to throw away all the plant, and you can come up with a better product than the plant grows just off its slough. Using the sun leaves and whether they're making water hash or whether they're doing BHO, which is butane hash oil. Mm-hmm. They can take what they were going to throw away and come up with a strong product that basically it's become the trend. That dabbing has become the trend. I don't mind a dab myself every once in a while, but one of the things I always believed in is if it's going to be a medicine, let it be a social medicine, where patients sit and talk and while they're medicating and talking about their problems. Well, with dabbing, you're lining up and not sitting in a circle, because you got this pipe that requires a torch. It's meant for it. At home, but I see it out in public all the time now, and that kind of concerns me. And I also, what concerns me is because people that don't do it see it and they go, "What are they doing? Smoking crack?" Because they're using a torch. It just doesn't look social. Mm-hmm. But that's my thoughts on dabbing. But one of the things that they did to us with our dispensary regulations, you used to be able to, if you lived in low-income housing and it had federal money, you can lose your place because of the federal money, because it's still illegal on the federal level. But they used to be able to go to your dispensary, vaporize, and go home. And they cut that out because they were worried about stoned drivers. And most patients I know, a lot of them can't drive. They're wheelchair bound. I mean, there's people that live in my building that people have to hold the vapor tube to their mouth for them. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of ridiculous that they cut that out, because basically, they hurt probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 patients in this state by doing that. Because now they don't have a safe place to medicate. They got to still go out in the alley or to a friend's house that isn't under some type of government control. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, we're talking about prices. What was the second part again?
The second question was about the legal or not the legal, but the crime aspects. But I just want to quickly ask before we get there, because you just touched on something about driving under the influence of cannabis. How is the state dealing with that particular circumstance? Like, what's the laws? I'm sure.
Right now that basically what we have on the books is driving under the influence of drugs. Period. Okay. Right. There is no quantitative measure for it. So it's a per se law. Right. It's not a per se law right now. They're trying to make it a per se law, and they're trying to make it with 5 nanograms. And we talked about this on my TV show last night. Either because they're trying to duplicate Washington, or they just need a number. And right now there's absolutely no science on the impairment of cannabis, because it affects everybody differently. Mm-hmm. And that's why the whole nanogram scheme does not work. It was in committee last week. It passed unanimously. Again, after listening to stacked testimony, they passed it on. But they passed it on to the Senate in our state, and it has a better chance of losing in the Senate than it did in the House of Representatives. But it still has one more committee to go through in the House of Representatives here, so it might happen there. You don't know. The point is that you got to show up, you got to testify, and you have to make them realize that there is no science to the impairment of cannabis.
Right, because of all the tolerances as well, and taking that into consideration. Well, it sounds like it's going to take a little while before they get that all sorted out, and I'm sure
right.
It's applicable with everything as well. But regarding
now the crime, right? Okay, now the crime. Originally, when they when it was kind of like the Wild West before they had regulation, you had to have a state and linked. There's cameras that are linked to the medical marijuana enforcement division now that they can monitor. They tape it, but nobody's sitting there watching them. People are always greedy. There have been pulled guns. A caregiver got killed. 2 caregivers have been killed. Ken Gorman, who was was the founder of basically the 420 rally here in Denver. He had been putting that rally on since 1992. In 2008, in a home invasion, and with a home grow, he was killed and his money was taken. To date, they have never found anybody, and everybody. He had run for governor. He was a very outspoken person. That the conspiracy theories run amok on that it was basically the police and nobody robbed him. The other one was just somebody being greedy, and the guy defending himself, and the guy pulled a gun and he died in his driveway. And those are caregiver situations. There's been situations where people have tried to rob dispensaries or broke into them, and they've all gotten caught because of the security.
Well, that's a situation of just like, it might happen even with the alcohol stores as well, that people are just desperate and they're going to steal a bunch of products. But technically, I would imagine there's a lot less arrests for even simple possession, growing, obviously, who's being arrested for that. So technically speaking, a lot of the crime that's been happening before, just because of the nature of the laws being changed, so that eliminates a lot of criminals.
Okay. In our city and county here in Denver, the pot arrests have gone down substantially, and that's due to law changes and the fact that the police finally are realizing that it's a waste of time, and before A64 it was only $100 fine and $14 cost if you had less than an ounce. So basically, it was a slap on the wrist. Thing is that with a ticket like that, if you're a college-age kid, you're no longer eligible for any type of federal scholarship, and you'll probably be denied any other type of scholarship. So that creates kind of a stigma, and it possibly create crime a crime because the person goes, well, what the heck? I've already been caught. I might as well keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And but around the dispensaries, actually the dispensaries have been real community active. You know, they clean up their neighbor. You know, they get the patients together. They can go out, clean up the neighborhood. They feed the homeless. They have bag lunches, you know, that they pass out, you know, every other Friday. Certain dispensaries will, you know, go and feed the people down, you know, in the homeless, you know, where the homeless hang out. It's been a win-win situation. You know, the cannabis community is trying to work with the civilian community, you know, and presenting a good image, you know, to say, well, you know, it isn't as bad as you think it is. Mm-hmm. One of the things they outlawed here in Denver, though, was, I don't know if you have them in Canada, but do you have sign twirlers?
Sign twirlers? What do you mean?
Yeah, in other words, you know, they stand next to the road. Maybe it's a car wash, maybe it's a pizza shop or a sub shop, and they have a sign and they kind of twirl them and, you know, to get people's attention, and it points towards the business. Mm-hmm. Well, we had that for a lot of the dispensaries that were like kind of in the middle of the block, mm-hmm. you know, and not on the corner. They would hire people, and so they passed regulations against that. But guess what? The people are still out there selling the subs and the burritos and all the other things, and it, you know, that was a stigma on the community. Well, you know, you're enticing the children.
Right. Okay.
But you know, you can walk.
I see both sides of that argument. You know, like technically speaking,
right.
With alcohol and cigarettes. You know, I don't know exactly what the situation is in the States, but I know up in Canada and lots of places, the ways that alcohol and cigarettes can be advertised are restricted just because, of course, it entices children. So I could see how that could potentially be categorically lumped together in that respect. I'm not sure what your laws are for promoting alcohol stores or cigarettes, people doing sign twirling for those types of things. But
they don't do it for that. But the thing is that if you pull into any gas station in the state of Colorado, in the windows are big signs for cigarettes. What's being discounted? You know, if they have a beer license, because the small stores can only sell beer and wine. You have to go to a bigger store to get the liquor. But they don't have sign twirlers for that. But downtown, where there's certain mountain wineries that want to showcase their product, they have tastings every once in a while in select actually tobacco stores, and they use sign twirlers for the wine.
Okay, so technically that's a double standard in that case.
So yeah, it's an oxymoron, right?
Yeah. Okay. Of course, you talked about the magic 3 words, safer than alcohol, was one of the big campaign things that you were doing recently. One of the questions that I wanted to also ask you is this, because you've done a lot, you and, of course, everybody else involved out in Colorado, and, of course, Washington, but I'm sure that you're more familiar with what's worked out in Colorado. There are things that you've done that worked, were successful. There were things that were probably flops and weren't good ideas from the get-go. Now, considering that a lot of other people in other states and other countries as well are trying to follow along in your footsteps, can you give a few pointers of what strategies worked for Colorado, what strategies definitely you would recommend people to stay away from, and sharing any insights to other people in other districts who are looking to follow in your footsteps to successfully follow along. Any suggestions that you can give for all the activists and all the political movement parties of the various different regions?
First of all, it takes money. You will never win any cannabis campaign on a grassroots level anymore. I don't believe. You know, I would love to believe it. I had while we were petitioning for age 64, I had my own law, and with somebody else, it was called the Relief for the Possession of Cannabis Act of 2012. And basically, our law was only one paragraph, and what it did was it relieved the prosecutors and the courts from prosecuting cannabis cases. You know, it just took the courts and the DA's office out of it. And since if they weren't going to, you know, if you lifted that off of them, then the police would have no reason to enforce. Thing is, we didn't get enough signatures, and that's what I'm saying. That, you know, if you're going to fight a campaign, it takes money, it takes organization of your petitioners. You know, where you're constantly having team meetings, you know, and you know, and pep rallies, you know, motivational talks. And you get out there and you make sure that the people that are asking for signatures are knowledgeable. You know, you can't ask, you know, I run into so many petitioners and sometimes they don't even know what they're asking you for. Mm-hmm. You know, and you read it and you go, well, no way, Jose, am I signing that? You know, you know, and that's the thing is that, you know, you have to make your cadre as educated as the person on top, as the person on the bottom. You know, that everybody is carrying the same message, and you know, and are knowledgeable, mm-hmm. and the money to do the advertising. We had billboards here all over the state that were more geared towards the soccer mom image, as opposed, you know, that we had to dispel the Cheech and Chong and Wayne's World and all those you know stoner movies that are out there, and you know, because people, you know I read the editorial comments, and it's still, even though we passed in Colorado, there's still people that have that idea that, you know, everybody's lazy and nothing gets done, you know, and you eat the icebox. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's basically education, and you know, an education cadre, and the money to back them is probably the most important thing on any regulation or legalization campaign.
Let me ask you this: how did you guys get the money? Because I'm sure that a lot of people are scratching their heads on that one. That's you know, the organization. Okay. You know, it's something that easy for project managers to wrap their minds around. But it's how do you get the money? From what sort of sources? How do you?
What they did, what we did basically was, and I wasn't in this process at the time, but they formed a coalition of the Drug Policy Alliance, which is a national organization, NORML, SAFER, Students for Sane Drug Policy, Sensible Colorado, and there's one organization. No, that's all of them. They formed a coalition. You know, Marijuana Policy Project, mm-hmm. Rob Campia's organization. You know, and they formed a coalition. You know, basically put MPP in charge of the purse strings, and then they went after the corporate donors. You know, the people that, you know, that they knew that they could get the money with it, and they also, you know, even the guy had $5, but you know, a well orchestrated, you know, let's get the money in. This is where we put it, advertising, you know, training petitioners, you know, and I mean, the petitioners all had, you know, a petition team on them, you know, so that they were readily identifiable to the people. They were bright, and they picked the Bronco colors of all things, orange and blue. Mm-hmm. You know, something that the people in this state relate to because we're such a crazy football state. You know, there were a lot of little psychological things that were employed in the campaign that way.
Okay. Want to just ask you a couple of things I wanted to get to, but respecting your time as well. The political environment, now talking on the federal level, we spoke last week about this a little bit to discuss for today. What's your views right now, of course, with the Colorado and Washington legalization? That's, of course, had a major impact on on the U.S. On the federal level too. I'm sure they're still reeling, thinking about what to do. Of course, last week I know that there was the UN was sort of blasting the U.S. for what's going on in Colorado and Washington, and you were keeping your eyes on what was actually happening there. Can you talk a little bit about what you see happening currently on the legal political levels federally with...
As of yesterday, Senator Jared Paulus, House Representative for the state of Colorado and Washington, D.C., out of Boulder, introduced legislation that basically would take it off the Controlled Substance Act, the CSA, where it's Schedule 1, and turn it over to the Bureau of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Firearms, and basically on a federal level to model it after what we did here in Colorado, being that Jared Paulus is from Colorado. But he has been a staunch ally of ours in this state. It's good that we have representatives that are on our side, because we should have a lot that aren't. But he's introduced federal legislation that would basically turn it over to the Bureau of Tobacco, the ATF, and then basically there would be basically a federal excise tax on it, and it would be handled from the federal level on down to the states.
Okay, hold on a second. You just blew my mind here for a second. Okay, so this happened yesterday. I still didn't get any. I didn't read any of the news here on this yet. I wasn't even aware that this actually happened yesterday. Okay, so just so I'm clear here, this has been removed or is being removed from Schedule 1?
That is. Let me pull it up here. I want to be 100% right here.
Because this is extremely significant because that would affect the entire United States.
Well, the representatives for the last year have been putting bills out there. Okay, February 6th. Okay, I'm looking for something current. But as I'm talking, okay. My representative in my area, Jared Paulus, is my representative. But Diane DeGette, who is my representative, last fall introduced basically legislation in the same aspect, except it also dealt with banking, because one thing they won't bank with anybody that sells or distributes marijuana, because the banks are controlled by the feds. But it's been ongoing for, Barney Frank in Massachusetts almost yearly would introduce bills, and what happens with them is they get into somebody's committee that is against it, and they won't let it out of committee. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so hopefully Jared's bill yesterday, and I'm quit pacing here. Okay, Jared Paulus.
Okay, so this is just an introduced bill. This isn't anything that's concrete here. Just.
Right. No, it is. Okay. It isn't law.
Okay. No, I was just had me confused there, but of course, with all the optimism, that would have been wonderful. But so this might still take a little while for it to mature and be done baking in the oven, so to speak, where it's all ready to become law. That could take quite a while still, but at least it's moving in the right direction there. From what you said. So overall, do you see that, of course, different people now are very optimistic. Like some people are saying 5 to 10 years. Some people are saying much sooner than that. What's your feeling from what you're seeing, everything that's going on, not just in your state, but throughout the United States and perhaps even worldwide? How long do you figure this is going to take before this prohibition finally crumbles down? This war on drugs is this quagmire war on drugs is finally going to be over in a sense. Because right now there's a lot of crazy laws that are conflicting from state level, federal level. Right now, a lot of things need to be sorted out. How long do you figure it's going to take until we got these laws?
Hopefully before the next U.S. presidential election, which is November 2016, and Obama can't run anymore because he's term limited. What I see going on right now, and yesterday, Pennsylvania introduced reintroduced legislation that had sat fallow for legalization in that state, and I see it akin to the Civil War, where the states succeeded from the Union, except right now instead of the word succession, we're using the word legalization, and it's since Colorado and Washington have passed, there's just everybody is introducing legislation of either medical, recreational, or hemp, basically across the board, and it's spreading across the United States. Mm-hmm. And just like the Civil War dealt with slavery, basically in the legalization battle, we are lifting 75 years of marijuana slavery. It's kind of like history repeating itself, except this time we're not firing guns from Fort Sumner down there south at the Union troops. In the succession of states, I mean, we become a little more civilized, and hopefully, with all these states introducing regulations, that the Fed's going to have to bow to the states, because they're all saying, well, screw you. We're going to. I mean, we have 18 states in the District of Columbia, all under the auspices of medical marijuana now. We have 2 states that have legalized. We've had in the past 6 months probably 5 on the East Coast that have put out some type of decriminalization laws. And Maryland right now has a legalization law up to 10 grams. A state that I never thought I'd see. It's just happening so fast, and that's why I predict probably by 2016 something will be substantial enough in the United States that the feds will no longer have they'll have the finger in the pie. You can guarantee that, but they won't have they won't have the handcuffs.
Right. Okay. Now, of course, you're mentioning all these states on the state level. They're trying to pass this legislation. Now, is this just helping me to understand? Is this something that they're putting on the ballots for 2016, or are they trying to push through this legislation?
No, this is all fresh legislation. This isn't for 2016.
Some of these states could actually pop conceivably over the next year, where they have either medicinally, recreational, or hemp legalized.
Right, and either by citizen ballot initiative or by introduced legislation, and I am seeing it more when I'm reading in the media these days. Is basically a lot of it's being introduced in the states, but without them having to take it to the ballot, which sure saves a lot of money in the long run. But the thing is, then you're getting government crafted law as opposed to if you were a lobby and crafting the law yourself. Mm-hmm. But one of the things I say all the time is we'll never get back to the garden, and if you don't understand regulate and tax, you're lost, because that is the temper of what's going on right now. That's the beat of the drum. Mm-hmm. Back in, when was it? In 2010, our governor here in the state of Colorado took $9 million of medical marijuana registry money because it was just sitting there, and was able to budget the state budget. I mean, balance the state budget. And, I know that every governor that day didn't have medical marijuana in their state, had to be thinking, man, I got to get pot in my state.
Well, I guess they're seeing advantages in that respect. So hopefully more and more states will catch on. But of course, that also depends on the people. So it goes back earlier in the conversation. You need to have all these organized movements to educate the people. Of course, it takes money to do that as well. But you guys have done it with, what was it, 63% of the popular vote back last year? We won in the city and county of Denver, 67. We won the election, I believe, by 54% in the state. Okay. Well, both of those are significant numbers. So
those
either way,
are known as
more than half are in support of
right.
cannabis. And of course, those numbers have been growing over the years, and of course, all the polls show that that the public opinion is steadily trending in a positive direction.
Right.
So, hopefully, we'll see that continue. Now, one of the things that you also talked about last week, you wanted to really discuss, of course, how cannabis is only a plant that we've been lied to for the past 75 years, and talking about that, and then of course going into the farming side and the hemp side of things. Can you get on that soapbox? What should people be aware that cannabis? What is it? Is it a drug? Is it what's been going on for the past crazy 75 years?
Well, the thing is that when the Anslinger, Hearst, and Rockefeller wanted to demonize it, they started using the word marijuana because it delineated to the Mexicans and it's how they pulled the wool over the public's eyes. They substituted the word cannabis for marijuana, and marijuana for the word cannabis, and started the racist campaign against it. Like I said, it all comes down to education. If you're going to turn people around, you have to educate them. You have to make them realize that, oh yeah, marijuana is cannabis, and there's several types of it. There's hemp. You got rudialis, you have indica, and you have sativa. And hemp is the inert, which has less than the 3% THC and basically probably 88% CBDs and cannabinoids, and it's educating them on that. And I think with all the hemp products that are out there, that basically that's kind of winning itself. It's just managing to get the laws on the books so the farmers can do the job.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you were telling me some interesting things. I took some notes down here. Of course, if you just used 8% of the farmland for oil, how that would be beneficial. Can you touch upon that?
Yes, and basically, what I'm looking at here is from Alberta. That's funny, but anyway, if we planted 8% of the farmland in the United States, we could produce all the oil that we need for a year. And we talked that I couldn't find how they get 3 crops, but a definite 2 crops a year. Mm-hmm. And a product that isn't going to get anybody high, that basically, can provide food, it can provide fiber, it can provide oil, and now that what they're learning with CBDs, it can provide medicine too. Mm-hmm.
And of course, the food from the seed as well.
Right. I said food.
Right. Did you? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that part.
Okay.
Yeah, so of course you were saying that it can also help heal the planet. Of course, socially, economically, environmentally, commercially. So of course, from an environmental perspective, you just said if 8% of the farmland was used to grow hemp, that we can actually presumably stop using fossil fuels in that respect, and so then
correct.
We'd be able to be carbon neutral as opposed to spewing carbon into the environment all the time. And damaging the environment that way. And there's so many implications, of course, from an environmental perspective, how cannabis can be used. Of course, you can build houses, you can build cars, of course, oil, clothing, food, all that sort of stuff like that. But you were also talking how it can create jobs. Like that's what people really focus on, especially politically. It's where's the money, where's the jobs, and how can by legalizing hemp that can actually solve a lot economically in jobs.
Somebody has to make the clothing. Somebody has to make the oil. Somebody has to handle that product from particularly whatever the end sale is. Somebody's going to have to be involved with that, and that is employment.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what you're doing, whether you're the guy out there, turning the water on the huge farm sprinkler systems that they use now for agriculture, from that point up, all the way to wearing a nice hoodie that was made by Hood Lab out of Amsterdam, because they couldn't do it here originally. Mm-hmm. But and it's imported, and that's we wouldn't have to import hemp anymore. That would save money on transportation. It would create jobs in the United States, and I'm sure that the countries that we're importing it from will still find customers. Mm-hmm. That as the movement spreads, there's still going to be more need. I mean that it's just like the dispensaries. Build them and the people will come. And that proved to be true, and they regulated, and some of them went away because of bad business practices, and that they couldn't stay up above the water. The thing is that it is a green plant, it creates green jobs, and it can save the planet.
And in that respect, I kind of lately started thinking about cannabis as one of the most important political things to be focusing on, because of course if we look at it, politics, let's create jobs, let's feed the hungry, or save the environment, social, economic, commercial, all that sort of stuff, all those issues. But by one act, legalizing cannabis, we can actually create so many impacts on all those different areas that what other topic can claim to have as much dramatic impact by just one simple act of legislation or one simple political stance. But regarding the farmers in Colorado, so are farmers now growing in Colorado hemp products? Because of course I know you guys have it legal.
They have the first permit was issued this week, mm-hmm. or last week. So and I'm not. I think it's in Robb County, but they are moving towards that. I mean, the planting season is about to come. I mean, I live in a place where the sun shines 300 days a year, and I'm talking really shines 300 days a year. We snowed yesterday, and and it was 20-some degrees, and it's going to be 70 today. We have crazy weather here, but we have lots of sunshine, and so. They are in the process. By the end of by harvest time this year, we should have the first hemp crops in Colorado.
Okay, well, looking forward to seeing how that actually goes. I'll be definitely watching the news and
then there's another bill that we had here, and we have we have Rocky Flats, which they build all the nuclear triggers for the the atomic and hydrogen bombs out there, and basically the land it's ruined. Plutonium, strontium, all the things that you get, playing in the nuclear playground. They are planting hemp out there to leach the soil and to free it of the radiation.
Oh, really? So it absorbs all the toxins from the soil. But what are they going to be doing with those hemp plants? Are they just growing it to then literally bury it, or what's their intention?
I'm not too sure what goes on there. I know that they did the same thing at Chernobyl.
Okay.
And I think the way it's going with Japan, with 4 cores melting down right now, and they're going into critical mass, they make. Japan better be looking at it too, maybe. We got a really bad disaster going over there because of this tsunami. Basically they have done nothing for those nuclear reactors because they can't get in there to do it. Mm-hmm. But we are doing an experiment to see how much hemp will leach it out. I imagine if you disposed of it, it would be easier to dispose of than actually disposing of bulk plutonium.
Okay. Well, maybe they can convert it, use some ethanol from it that wouldn't have plutonium in it, and maybe bury all the waste byproduct or something along those lines. But
right.
The bottom line is, so are they using hemp because it really leaches the soil of these heavy metals? Is that powerful?
it is that power. It is that powerful, and I think it's because it might convert them. I mean, I'd have to do more research. I've been in the medical area so long that sometimes I'm lacking in hemp 101 as opposed to I'm in advanced medical. So it's a learning process for me to my education hasn't stopped. It's our most valuable tool. One of the things I heard when I was young was from were they organizing street gangs in Chicago into basically socialist cells. The banner of their newspaper said, "What you don't know, learn. What you do know, teach." And that's been my philosophy all my life.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely embody that philosophy. You definitely are quite the teacher. You share a lot of your wisdom, and of course today with us as well. Final thought for all the people who are now sort of coming out of the woodworks, becoming activists, trying to help the cause in so many different ways. What would you recommend for people to be focusing on so that they can actually do something productive towards these legalization efforts? Obviously, smoking up on April 20th on the steps of some courthouse or public buildings is one thing that people do, but that's not really helping the cause ultimately. What can people do, the average people, that can be meaningful, significant contribution within reason of what they're able to do? Not everybody's going to be doing stuff that's going to be in the public light or too risky from a legal perspective. But what can people do to realistically help this movement forward?
Keep it in the conversation. Period. That's it. Keep it in the conversation. Sitting at the bar, talk about it. Sitting, hanging out at the water cooler at break time. Sitting around with the guys on the construction site with the lunch pail at lunch. Don't be afraid to talk about it at the family dinner. But the whole thing is to keep it in the conversation. That's another powerful tool that we used here in Colorado was we just kept it in the conversation. Mm-hmm. One of the things I did was they were looking for an event of the decade for Colorado. And for the Huffington Post, and I went and I got over 5,000 Facebook friends and fans, and what I did was I said, hey, look, we need to make the legalization of marijuana the event of the decade for 2000 to 1999, and we did it. I mean, and I did it by keeping it in the conversation, but by making it that way, and I did it. I slanted the election, but guess what? I kept it in the conversation.
Okay. And a number of the other speakers that I've interviewed have pretty much said the same thing, and that's it seems to be the most powerful thing is keeping it in the conversation, initiating conversations around it, because this is how we educate people. It's literally, in a sense, a grassroots thing from mind to mind, literally conveying the information. And what we literally see is, of course, that most people who are opposed to cannabis are just opposed due to ignorance. But as soon as they are informed of the truth, that most of them actually turn around and become advocates of cannabis in some way, shape, or form. And that only happens once people's minds are educated. And so, talking about it, I think you're absolutely right, Bill. That's definitely critical that people do that. And I know that a lot of people have been in the closets on this issue because of the stigma. But is that time sort of like passing now? Like we need to forget about the stigma and just move forward and just talk about it. Would you agree with that?
It's like my friend Lynn Wilson, who is the happy hemptress there in Cincinnati on Hemp Rock Radio, says when you see one roach, you know there's a million in the closet, and that's just it. It's getting people out of the closet. It's getting people comfortable with it. It's how you carry the movement. One of the things that some people find upsetting is the fact that they run huge TNA campaigns around cannabis. And right, tits and ass.
Oh.
In other words, the nurse in the short miniskirt nurse's uniform and the too low button down cleavage thing going on. Sometimes that detracts from the movement. One of the things that has always stymied me is when I was taking 12 Vicodin a day, I didn't have a clothing line.
Okay.
Meaning, suddenly there's whole marijuana, even for medical patients, there's clothing for medical patients. Another thing that stymies me is why would you go out and spend $3,000 on a bong? Other than you're either you're very well heeled, you're dealing drugs, but it's a marijuana, it's a cannabis delivery system, and you don't need to be, it just blows me away all the products that they're coming up with to get the consumers money and their collateral things. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing.
Well, I guess, people also drive high-end, expensive Ferrari cars.
I understand that too. I know. I understand the whole. Have me nots, basically. Mm-hmm. And you're right. People do drive nicer cars, and people can afford $3,000 bongs. The thing is that if you're going to spend that much money, and it's illegal where you're living, buy the cheaper bong and give it to an organization that's going to do you some good.
Right. Okay. Actually, that's a really good point. Actually, yes. If your $3,000 bong gets confiscated by cops because it's illegal,
that's right.
Nobody's further ahead. Might as well get that $50 bong and have a lot of money over to some good causes.
Or for the lawyer for having the $50 bond. Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. Actually doing that as we speak.
So did I. I walked by my cabinet.
Well, hopefully these laws will be changing, and of course, right now, lots of positive things are happening. Of course, Colorado, you guys are so lucky out there because. Bottom line is, I'm sure. With the federal laws as they are, there must be still a little bit of an uneasiness. But overall, would you say that most people who are using cannabis out there are actually feeling comfortable? Then they're not scared.
I think the only people that need to be scared are basically the business people, because they have no solid ground to stand on, because the feds have said, well, if the banks do business with you, we close the banks down. So these people have big safes and lots of money, lots of cash money, and they have to pay their employees in cash, and basically what that brings in is not so much the Drug Enforcement Administration, but then you get the Internal Revenue Service, which handles the taxes. Next thing they're auditing your business, and there has. Along with the rescheduling in the United States, the banks have to come along too. It has to be all for one or none for all.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds to me like Hollywood's got an opportunity to make something like an Ocean's 11, vault heist instead of being at a casino. It might actually be a few cannabis dispensaries. I'm just saying that as a joke, but who knows? Hopefully that'll change, though. Of course, these are legitimate businesses. If they're paying taxes, they should have the same rights as any other business to put their money in a safe location, like a bank. And but anyhow, we're still dealing with a lot of craziness on a lot of fronts here. So.
Oh yeah, it's and that's just it. There's a lot of fronts, if Colorado and Washington hadn't did what they did, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. And that is a huge step right there. That I am talking to somebody in Canada. I'm not talking to somebody down the street. So it has become a worldwide thought. It is in the conversation, and things are happening.
And I'm getting subscriptions from people all over the world, and they keep on sending little messages, thank you notes along with their subscribing for the summit. And people are coming from all over the world. So you know what, Bill? You're not just talking to people down the streets. You're not even just talking to me who's up in Canada. You're actually talking to people who are in all continents, except for perhaps Antarctica. You're talking to everybody right now.
Right.
And that's amazing, and that's, of course, because of what you guys have accomplished. And I know, Bill, you've definitely been a significant part of that. And you guys have done something very significant for yourselves, but really, I hope that you recognize, Bill, that your victory actually resounded around the world. The whole world woke up, took notice of what you guys have accomplished, are applauding you, and we're really grateful because you're leading the legalization movement. You're actually greasing the wheels for all the rest of us to follow suit. So, Bill, I want to thank you so very much for everything that you've done for the past number of years, pretty much most of your life towards legalization, of course, what you've done in Colorado, and for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
And thank you very much for having me. And I'd like to close my conversation like I close most speeches. It's time to free the weed, plant the seed, and end the greed.
Beautiful tagline. Thank you so very much, Bill.
And thank you.